Good evening. Hello. Welcome. My name is Brandy Rose Smith and we are live from the Forbidden Library. Woo. Today we will be continuing to read Purple Door District by Edwin Casey. We are 26% of the way through this book, which means we are halfway through done with it because I only have permission to read half the book. The other half you have to buy yourself. Not an ad, but links in the description. Good book, go buy it. However, for now, I need to catch up on what happened, in case you have not listened to other streams. So let me summarize best I can for you. 26% of Purple Door District. So, we have our main girl, Bianca. Main girl, Bianca, is a werebird. A werebird is like a werewolf, but a bird, go figure. Except they have like spirit birds in their head, which is like a representation of their bird, but is kind of who they are, kind of isn't. Kind of like a limb, kind of like another limb, and they can send that bird out and lots of cool things. Anyway, she's in trouble. Her sister's dead. Her family's dead. She's on the run from hunters who don't like paranormal things like her, parahumans. And so when before her sister died, she said if she ever got into trouble, go find the Purple Door District. So very, very desperate, she Googles Purple Door District. She happens to be in Chicago, so she Googles there, and finds an Airbnb, which has a purple door and a purple flower pot, and says in brackets, PDD. So, wonderful. She heads there, still being pursued by hunters. This is she's jumped out of a car at this point because one was a taxi driver. She gets hit by some horrible bird equivalent of wolfsbane, but is called henbane, and goes down at the doorstep of this Purple Door District, only to be saved by its resident GLaDOS. Not the murderous robot, but the very nice lady, GLaDOS, who is a water magus who, chases the hunters off, takes Bianca in, and gets her all cozied up. Eventually they talk. Bianca says how cagey she is. She doesn't want any of the feds involved. Nothing about Legion, which is seems to be the magical feds. And then GLaDOS wants to find somewhere for her to recover, and birds recover better with birds. So she goes to a bird she knows called Carlos, who owns a restaurant called the Guacamole Grill. Carlos is having trouble with a vampire lady who did help out, but she's gotten a bit too big for her boots recently, and she was generally being incredibly rude in his restaurant, so he had to kick her out. Luckily, GLaDOS appeared at that time to help kick her out, because GLaDOS has a lot of political sway sort of stuff in this world, because she is the Violet Marshal for this sort of district, this section of the Chicago's Purple Door District. She's queen of Chicago's Purple Door District. So they ask about getting Bianca over. Problem is his family, his wife in particular, is a bit wary because they've had issues with hunters in the past. They killed their daughter and they made his wife disabled. So he goes home and he talks about it, and she's really cagey about it all. She's like, I don't want to bring any more trouble to the children we have adopted, who are absolutely adorable little baby children. They are. Wrap them up in cotton wool and protect them at all costs, babies. Eventually, Bianca comes along and she sees that she is just a scared little girl and decides to give her a chance, because one of the little babies that we want to wrap up in cotton wool and protect happens to be into art, and Bianca's good at art. She was going to go to art school, so she's going to come round and teach him a little bit about art and relax with the family a little bit, and they'll get to know each other. Flash to another part of the city. This disgruntled vampire that got kicked out of the restaurant is pissed. She's just so annoyed that vampires aren't the top of the food chain. Yes, she got mistreated by the person who made her a vampire, that she was basically a slave to that person for a while, and that sucks, it really does, but it doesn't give you permission to be a butthole about it. But she goes to her coven and goes, meh, meh, meh. Her coven also tell her to, fuck up her ideas, because she ain't doing great right now, and she's not doing, and it's not reflecting well on any vampire. So she storms out of there. Finds the vampire's actually kind of nice to her. Maybe he's a little arseholey as well, but like, at least there's someone that she relaxes with a moment, someone she might actually listen to. And they go to like feed on some innocent woman because they're both hungry and need to throw off some steam, only to be attacked by hunters. This one vampire that understands her gets shot and is killed, and she got hit in the face. And that is where we ended up. We are now back with this vampire that is in distress. Chapter 7. A Purple Door District begins now. With the game begins. Trish woke up with a moan. Her entire body burned as if staked out in the desert sun, her head spinning in sympathy. She blinked through the haze in her eyes until she could make out her warehouse prison. She sat upright and pulled her arms and legs against her tight restraints. Her mouth ached from being forced open with a cloth, preventing her from biting anyone, or speaking for that matter. No charming for her. She looked around slowly and took in the door to the left, the broken wooden crates along the floor, and Trish sobbed into her gag as she found Gavin lying on the ground. Blood had pooled around his head, giving a horrid crimson halo. He stared up at the sky with blank eyes, his devil-may-care smile twisted to open-mouthed. Oh, that's particularly nasty. They killed him in the alley, which means they dragged his body here just to fuck with her. I don't like this vampire, but that is still very mean. She unleashed a muffled scream of sorrow and pressed her head into her shoulder. She'd never seen someone killed in front of her before. Blood bags didn't count. She'd been unconscious or not present when anyone else had perished. Gavin hadn't deserved that. Gavin was gone. The door to her prison swung open, and the two men walked inside. Both were dressed casually in jeans, shirts, and vests, but she could see the utility belt under their waists and the holsters hidden in jackets. The bearded man brought a bag over to the table next to her and set it down. He opened it and took a few weapons out: a syringe, a glass bottle of liquid, and a blindfold. The last he kept in his hand and walked towards Trish. She tried to keep her head away, but he took a fistful of her red hair and jerked her until she stilled. He slid the blindfold over her eyes, stealing her ability to both see and charm. If she ever had her mouth freed. The man unhooked the gag and pulled it swiftly out of her mouth. Not that she would have been able to take a bite of him anyway. She coughed and shied away from him, her head tilting so she could listen to the subtle movements and know where he stood. The bearded man's shoes squeaked as he walked to the table. His partner gave something soft a kick, and it took her a moment to realise his target was Gavin. "What do we do with this, Chad?" Chad. "Don't touch him! Don't touch him!" Sorry, I didn't realise that was Trish from in. Trish cried before she could stop herself. She heard the move, and she slumped down in her bonds to make herself look smaller. The bearded man, Chad, snorted. "Not like he's gonna feel it." More rustling. "We've been watching you. Well, actually, we were watching someone else. But you became of interest to us. A bitten born, yes? Recently changed." Trish frowned. "Why do you care?" "It's a part of our job," Chad replied. "We were trying to stop things like that from happening." Trish fell quiet for a moment, then stiffened. "Hunters. Took you long enough." The other man scoffed. "Ricardo," Chad warned. His hand reached her bare knee sending chills through her flesh. You were at the grill earlier today. A woman came in asking the owner if there's something about a girl. Can you tell us? What can you tell us? Trish clenched her teeth and struggled in her bonds. Why should I tell you anything? Something cold pressed into her throat. Chad or Ricardo had moved faster than her senses could tell. Either one of them wasn't exactly human, or the drug kept her under more than she thought. The thing pressed harder into her skin. Words. The thing pressed harder until her skin split, the metallic scent of blood filling the air. She sucked in a frightened breath and grew still. Answer our question, Ricardo said, or you're gonna end up with a second smile. You'll kill me anyway, Trish said nervously. Why should I tell you anything? Chad sighed in her. We've been known to make deals, especially with those who had no choice in the matter. A forced change, was it? Trish licked her dry lips. The blade slipped away from her throat. She instantly shrank back again. Yeah. That's a real shame, Chad said sympathetically. What about that girl you were feeding on? Were you going to do the same to her? No. We were just hungry. We were going to feed, charm her to forget, then let her go. We were under control, but then you... Tears swelled in her eyes until the blindfold soaked them all up. We weren't thinking of hurting anyone. Why did you kill him? We have a long sheet on him, Dad said. Your friend hurt a lot of people, and we want to make sure we had your full cooperation. Now, if you tell us what we need to know, we may be able to help each other. Trish snorted. What could I possibly want from you? Your life, for one, Jad replied. Safety, protection, all the things you've craved but haven't found. Trish fell silent. A chill ran down her back. Just how much had they known about her? Hunters and their sources, their spies. For all she knew, they'd gotten the information from another of her coven members. When she didn't respond, Dad went on. We're willing to give your life to help you. You have to help us. The woman, what did she want? Wah. Trish almost snapped at him again, but she could hear Ricardo loading a bullet into his gun. Was he going to shoot her if she didn't answer? Her heart pounded in her chest with nervous anticipation. Did they know that she'd stayed around the parking lot to hear what Gladys and Carlos had to say? They must. Otherwise, why ask her? She asked Carlos about taking an avian in. The girl's being chased by hunters, and Gladys thought that Carlos could protect her. Why, Carlos? Ricardo asked. He's the father of a cloister and one of the strongest in the district. And Gladys trusts him. The woman? Yes, he's the Violet Marshal. She heard some scribbling on paper. A pen, probably. What else would it be? I mean, it could be a pencil. Who knows? Maybe the men didn't know as much as she thought. Or were just testing her. What else? Chad asked. Trish shook her head. I don't know what else you want to know. Carlos went home after he said she could bring the avian over. Do you know this Violet Marshal well? This Gladys? Trish swallowed a lump in her throat. Yes. She brought me to my coven. She helps all the new people. Keeps a tight rein on everything and everything too. Ricardo chuckled. You sound a bit bitter about that. Trish turned her head away. She does what she thinks is right, even if she didn't Even if it did make her prejudice against Trish's own. Oh, come on, Trish. Come off it. Come off it. I don't know much about this other avian. But you know where Gladys would have brought her. Do you know where Gladys lives? You know where Gladys lives. If you spoke to your hunters that got chased away, you would know. The question set off warning bells in her head. Trish didn't respond. Just like before, a blade pressed against her throat until she couldn't breathe. She coughed and trembled in Ricardo's hold. Yes! She squeaked out. Good. Chad wrote something else down. I'm curious about something. Did you want to be a vampire? Do you enjoy it? Trish didn't understand his sudden interest in her, but she dreaded the consequences of silence. No. I didn't want to be. I like it, but sometimes I wish it never happened. My family... She grew silent. Her family had abandoned her when they found out about her transformation. Her father cast her out, and her brother had called her a demon. Being changed had ruined her past life. Though it didn't mean her future had to end the same, provided she had a future to begin with. Chad tapped the pen against his notebook. That little avian that was brought here. She is the key to people being forced to become something they don't want to be. She's a threat to your kind, and a threat to the humans as well. We're trying to collect her. But the Maggers protecting her put a ward around her house. We can't get in, but you can. Uh-oh. Trish stiffened. She didn't like where this was going. We need an inn, Chad continued. We need a way to get to that girl, and you are our best bet. Granted, if you betray us, we can go hunt down another vampire. There's no telling how many more of your coven brothers will end up dead at our hands. We have sheets on a lot of them. Trish fought back a whimper of despair. You want me to go in and get the girl? Gladys will never allow it. She'll kill me. You let us worry about this, Chad said. You just need to get her out of the house. We'll take care of her. You apprehend the girl. They made it sound so simple. Gladys would see her coming a mile away, but they thought she could just easily walk in there and take what didn't belong to her. Why is she so important to you? Ricardo started to make a snide remark, but Chad clicked his tongue. He walked towards her, but stopped. She thought, just out of kicking distance. Not that it would have mattered, since her legs were tethered. Many people have been forced to change against their will, and their lives have become awful. If a monster had done something like that to my daughter, I'd want someone to help her. The avian girl has information about something that can force people to change, which we need. Her sister didn't give it up freely. Neither will she. We need her. Otherwise, she can create a huge problem for both the human and para-human world. You don't care about us, Trish hissed. Believe it or not, but we do. Who stops the para-humans who want to destroy their own kind, or hunt other para-humans? We do. We have very specific targets, and we eliminate them to keep all people safe. What about Gavin? He asked, her throat tightening. What did he do that made you choose to kill him? He's been on our list for a long time, Chad repeats, because we know this. It's just Trish is upset. Killed whole families before he came here. bloodthirsty, cruel. He was not, Trish shouted. He was kind, and caring, and you didn't know a damn thing about him. Ricardo sighed loudly. Can we get this over with? If she's not going to help us. Quiet, Chad said. To his own kind, yes. He was kind and caring, but to us, not to humans. He killed dozens. We have lists of several of your brethren who have killed people. You can protect them if you just do as we ask. Trish sniffed. You'll kill me. Kill them if I don't. She heard a gun cock. She stiffened, waiting for the bullet to take her through the skull next. With the drug in her system, she wouldn't have a chance of surviving the shot, just like Gavin. We don't want it to come to that, Chad said. You can redeem yourself and save a lot of people by helping us. Otherwise, well, at least you'll get to see your friend again. Such a quick turn. It's like, oh, I'm your friend. I am doing this for the greater good, but I will shank a bitch. You cannot stop me. Oh, Chado. Chado, you are... Scary mofo. Scary mofo. Trish shuddered in terror. But you already threatened to kill other vampires. Only those who committed crimes against humanity, Chad said. Let's say you help. We'll let them free for the greater good. This girl's ability can do more harm to everyone than you vampires can. Trish swallowed. She didn't have a choice, did she? He said no. They would kill her, or they'd murder other members of her coven. If she said yes, then she would likely get Gladys killed and turn over an avian who wanted a place to call home. But then again, didn't Trish crave the same thing? A home? Why did she have to suffer and die because of a werebird? Why should she lose her coven members because of a magus who couldn't leave well enough alone? Maybe if the vampire target had been Frowler, Trish would have reconsidered, but she didn't want to die. I'll do it. But only if you swear that I'll be safe, and so will my coven, if I help you. I promise, Dad said. We don't want to spill any more blood than necessary. You help us, we'll take the girl, leave, and never come back. You have our word. Trish nodded and licked her lips. Then I agree. What do you need me to do? We'll release you, but we'll be watching. Signal us when you're ready to go after the magus. When the girl is with her, and no one is around to help. We'll know if you alert anyone of what transpired here. We have more watchers out there. You can understand. Trish nodded nervously. Good. With a charming tone, Chad said with a charming tone. Then, let's get you home. Trish wondered just how they were going to do that when a needle pierced the back of her neck. Her stomach turned and her head spun until she fell into darkness. Trish jerked awake and flipped onto her back. Her hands and legs were free, and lavender incense filled her nose instead of the smell of old warehouse or dead vampire. She sat up and found herself back in her room at home. Her fingers ran over the purple satin blanket that had been laid on. She looked around, but the door and window were both shut. For a moment, she wondered if it had all been a nightmare, until she rolled over and found a small envelope near her hand. Trish opened it slowly. A single Polaroid fell onto her bed. She lifted it with trembling hands and stared at herself sitting unconscious in the chair, a knife at her throat, and at her feet lay Gavin's body, dead eyes staring back at her. Trish dropped it with a muted sob and clapped her hands over her mouth. 2 words were scrawled on the bottom of the Polaroid. "We're watching." Ba ba ba. All these hunters are spoopy boys. They're scarier than most of the parody ones. And I know Carlos said it in the last one, but they're more scary because they have this big sense of justice. That they feel like they're the justified ones. They're happy to play God with people's lives. Oh, we'll spare these vampires that have killed people, but for this bird that has not killed people, but has a potential to kill people. Yes, that makes sense, Mr. Hunter, that makes sense. And it does just make you wonder what is wrong. What is wrong with Bianca? She seems fine. She has no idea. If she has this threat, she has no idea she has it, the poor thing. Poor Kata burb. Poor bird. But now we are on to Chapter 8. We're back to Bianca after that intermission from Carlos to Trish to Bianca. So we'll see what Bianca feels after meeting the new family. Bianca woke from a nightmare. Obviously she hates them. Nah. Bianca woke from a nightmare with a scream. She flailed in the darkness, cloth twisting and binding her arms and legs. Her bird flapped wildly through her head until she managed to kick free, scrambling backwards. Sent her head over heels right off the bed, jarring her spine. Her bird screeched in fear and anger, adding to the confusion. Where was she? What happened? She pushed herself up and shrieked when lightning flashed through her bedroom window. Somewhere in the back of her mind, she knew she was in Gladys's home, but the thought vanished quickly. The room blurred until figures crawled across the walls and floor, their claw-like nails reaching for her. Notebook, she mumbled. She grabbed the desk leg she rolled into and pulled herself up. Her hands scrambled over the top of the desk, knocking over a cup of water, pencils, and the lamp that broke into 3 jagged pieces as it hit the floor. There, no. Faces. No. She shook her head and finally closed her hand around the book. Bianca dragged it onto the floor and slapped through the pages until she found a blank one. One of the shadowy figures touched the paper just as Bianca started to draw. She sketched the outlines of 3 people, 2 women and 1 man. Her eyes darted across the paper, her hands scribbling furiously and adding more detail as she focused on the dream. Colours filled in the black outlines, creating an ombre sheen into the middle woman's hair. The other woman sank teeth in the first one's neck. The man leaned back, his mouth open, fangs showing. One of the dancing shadows touched the center of his head, and she marked it with a red pencil. Another flash of lightning jerked her to a stop. She stared at the drawing in the glare of the streetlight from outside for a long moment, then started to sketch another. This one showed Gladys in front of her house. The purple planter swung in the air, and Gladys wore a contemplative expression. The same fanged woman Bianca had drawn formed again, facing off against the maggots. Bianca picked up a grey-coloured pencil and made 2 shadows behind the woman. Shadows. Her heart pounded, her vision blurred, and her hand shook. Bianca kept drawing until the images spiraling around her slowed and dissipated like smoke. She couldn't stop staring at the fanged woman. Why was she there? Why twice? She shook her head and dropped the pencil to the floor with a soft clatter. A Kara appeared beside her. Feathers fluttered and eyes pinned. The bird snapped at the pencil with her beak and ruffled her body until Bianca brushed a soothing hand down her back. She didn't understand what she'd just seen, but her head and her heart ached, and she couldn't shake the sense. The clock ticked against her. Intense dreams! We know she's predicted some things very well, because she's already seen the birds of the family in a dream. And now she has seen the scene with Trish and Gavin that we've already read, and a new scene to foreshadow the future. Exciting. Do you like it? Henry asked, shoving his painting in her face. Bianca blinked sleepily and held out a hand to block it from smacking her across the nose. I could just kind of see it like boof, and then you pull it back and she's got a big red nose because that's what the painting was. A lovely barn owl soared across the page, painted with acrylics, except for overly large feet and a too big head. The drawing was impeccable. What a talented young boy he is. It's beautiful, she praised, admiring the owl's feathers. Colour layering is great. Definitely a good replica of your mum. Cool. Mama, did you see? Did you? Haley perched in the... Haley perched in her owl form inside the flower pot her husband had modified for her. She stretched out a wing, warming it in the sun. When she heard her son, she swiveled her head round and offered an owl smile. An owl smile? I feel like I've seen this owl speak of on some social media site. I love it. Henry beamed. Madison looked up from her nest of pillows propped against the screen door. Whoa, that really does look like Mum, she said. You like it? Henry asked in shock. Then it must be really good. He stuck his tongue out and leaned forward so he could sign his name at the bottom with a paintbrush. It looked more like a blotch to Bianca, but to Henry, he'd created a masterpiece. Bianca smiled a little and picked up a piece of charcoal. Warm sunlight erased the bite from the late fall breeze as it brushed through her hair. They sat together on the porch to enjoy the mild weather. Sure, it added some loose leaf fragments to their paintings, but it made Henry's lesson more interesting that way. She returned her sketch of a snowy forest with a black wolf and a grey wolf racing through the trees. Is that another... This is my second reading of this book, so obviously I may or may not be noticing things I didn't before. So is that another vision, actually? Because we do have a... Might be another vision. I can't say. This is your first time reading. Read the book, okay? Because we're probably not going to get to that point in my half reading of this. So, read the book. Read the book. I'm going to have to check this myself and I can't even... Okay, yeah, sorry. Realising things. Now, this is a sign of a good book. Realising things on your second read through. Good stuff. Anyway. Because I actually can't remember what colour they were. If that's the correct colour or not. Anyway, stop it. Read. The drawing bore a lighter image than the one last night. Whatever had triggered the nightmares still lingered with her today. Her Kara paced around restlessly, and her exhaustion made curling up under the patio table for a nap sound like her idea of heaven. That does sound. I love the idea. Bianca started to draw another figure in the snow when Henry tugged on her sleeve. And that third figure. You know. If you've read this, you know. You know. Bah! What do I make now? He asked. Bianca thought, then chuckled. An old episode of Bob Ross coming to my mind. Let's do some happy little trees. Huh? An artist I used to watch loved to paint trees. Usually used them to cover up mistakes. Now, I'll draw a tree and then you copy me. She reached for one of the acrylic brushes and dipped it in brown paint. The bristles flowed across the canvas and created the puffy outline of a tree. Bianca filled it in entirely before grabbing a green brush. He wasn't afraid to mess up. He called them happy little mistakes instead. She added splashes of green, dabbing delicately so she didn't smear the brown paint too much. I want to be like that, Henry said as he watched her add branches and pine needles to the tree. Bianca nudged him with her shoulder. One day you can be. She mixed various shades of green to give the foliage more depth. Henry watched her with hungry eyes, yearning to learn. He'd be a great artist one day, a prodigy in the making. He could put some of her own drawings to shame. That's so pretty, Henry said as she finished up the tree. Thanks. Okay, you saw how I blended those colours, right? It's just like what you did with your mum's wings. He picked up the palette, filled it with the same colour she'd used, and offered it to him. Now, I want to see your happy little trees. Aww. Henry brightened. He got to work mixing pigments and creating a right mess of his palette. But who was she to judge? He was an artist. As he painted, the picture came to life. A cute little tree appeared near hers. The crooked branches and blotchy colours betrayed his lack of finesse, but that just made it special. That just made it more Henry. Aww. Fluff scenes, 10 out of 10. Bianca draped an arm over the back of his chair and smiled. Her Cara hunched down, wanting so badly to join Henry's red-tailed hawk. But they could both feel Haley's eyes watching her carefully. The woman had warmed up to her presence over the past couple of days, but an insurmountable wall stayed up between them. Bianca had yet to feel the woman's bird in her own head, as she'd experienced with Carlos, but that wasn't entirely unusual. Some avians didn't like connecting bird to bird for a long time. Bianca held back mentally, bonding with the children for fear of offending their mother. Life with Carlos and his family brought peace and comfort when she'd felt neither, but a cloud of deception hung over her head. She'd had more freedom before, and could come and go as she pleased. Oh, hello! Silver Muse, also known as the author. I'm glad you managed to catch me live. Hello. But yeah, I do love, that's one of my favourite scenes, I think, is the Bob Ross scene of this book. It's so cute. It's a good book, yes. I have much fun, because it is good. Also, you're sneaky foreshadowing in there. Sneaky! Where was I? She'd had more freedom than before, and could come and go as she pleased. Happy little tree, happy mistakes. Here, eyes watched her wherever she went. Carlos, Haley, or Gladys followed her every footstep. It was nice to have the protection and not feel so alone, but at the same time, she felt like a prisoner, which ironically did make her feel lonely. She wanted to be herself, but Bianca couldn't seem to stop crushing the floor of eggshells she treaded so carefully on. Haley eyed her like a viper. Carlos kept cautioning her not to leave the house. Gladys treated her like a fallen hatchling. She could do nothing right except teach Henry how to paint. And what's so bad about that? He reasoned. At least the kids like me. I mean, that's always a plus. They know bad people when they see things. Kids are good judges of character. Even Maddie's letting me read to her at night. That's a good sign, right? Akara bobbed in her head in agreement. Yes. Bianca brushed hair out of her eyes as Henry added another tree. He did the same. He giggled and poked green paint on her tree. She gasped in return, pretending to be offended, and brushed his plant with another shade of green. They went back and forth, dotting the painting and creating a bunch of splodgy, bushy foliage. Henry squealed with laughter and suddenly poked Bianca on the nose with the tip of her paintbrush, leaving a brown mark on her face. Audacity! Bianca laughed and smeared green on his cheek. Children, Haley said mentally with a sigh. Just having fun, Mom. Mom, why? Henry kept giggling, but Bianca put her brush down so she didn't offend the elder avian. Yes, she is on thin ice, even though she has done nothing to be on thin ice other than exist. Sorry, Haley, she said. She wiped her hands off and nodded to Henry. Let's get cleaned up before Gladys is picking me up soon. Let's get cleaned up. Gladys is picking me up soon. Aww, Henry complained. But at a look from his mother, he nodded and ran inside, passing Madison. They stuck their tongues out playfully at one another before Henry disappeared down the hall, peak sibling writing, being little shits to each other. Bianca dabbed the paint off her nose and then gathered the supplies. Sorry, she repeated. It's nice just to relax and play. I'm sure, Haley said gently. But he still has to behave. He glanced at the painting. He's getting better with your help. You're good with him. Thanks. Bianca blushed and sat on a chair next to the barn owl. Haley swiveled her head around to get a better look at her. I appreciate the hospitality. I never want anything bad to happen to your kids because of me. Oh, hello, Luke Raptorwell. Fair enough. I am very good. How are you? What are you streaming? I know, and I'm sorry for being so stiff about all this. You have to understand, we've had bad experiences with hunters. Ooh, sounds cool. I hope you have a very fun stream. Oh no, Soul's like, I hope your stream isn't so rage-inducing that you get too stressed. We just want enough stress that it's entertaining for people, but not so stressed that you burn yourself out. You're just trying to protect your children, Bianca said, her fingers caressing the beads on her necklace. If I was a mum, I'd be doing the same. She glanced at Madison as the girl flipped the page in her chapter book. Is it weird that I really... been distracted. Words. Bye. That ominous to drop. Sonic Souls is coming eventually and then just leave. Like a Chad. Drop Sonic Souls. Leaves. Not another word. Is it weird that I feel really protected of them too? No, they are fictional. I feel protective of them already. They are the sweetest little beans. Protect. Haley chuckled in her head. You're not the first to say that after meeting them. She flexed her beautiful wings and glanced at her wheelchair. I'm going to shift then help you get some treats together for Gladys. Haley, I can get it. You don't have to. But the woman flapped past her. Bianca realized, not for the first time, that Haley's independence and stubbornness outweighed her disability. They will. They should be protected at all costs. They are the sweetest babies. The werebird landed, a skid in her chair. Her body changed, her wings growing into thin arms, her talons and feet shifting into 2 legs. Her brown hair spilled down her shoulders with shadows of her feather pattern in it. She shook her head and picked up her glasses she'd placed on the table. Better, Haley said. I'm glad we could get out with the kids. Yeah, at least the weather's behaving today. I thought we'd have storms after the lightning last night, Bianca said. It's almost unseasonably warm, like the weather can't make up its mind. If it wants to rain, sleet, snow, or just be sunny, it's almost as bad as Iowa. She headed to the door and reached down to ruffle Madison's hair fondly. The girl giggled. Madison grabbed her book and pillows and cleared them out of the way so her mother could come inside. Bianca leaned against the breakfast bar while Haley wheeled into the kitchen. But the sweet smell of melted chocolate in their homemade cookies filled the air. Oh, that sounds glorious. I want some. Oh, I do have chocolate actually. Oh, let's go get it. 1 minute. Stretch. Chocolate raisins. They're not as good as chocolate cookies. But the mention of chocolates made me want chocolate. Oh, I got raisins instead. Yay. Heat ebbed from the cooling oven, providing a little warmth after being outside. Haley scooped chocolate and walnut cookies. Oh, chocolate and walnut! Oh. Into baggies, then cut 2 pieces of apple pie. Carlos loves it when you and Gladys come, Haley commented as she snapped on the lids of the Tupperware containers. He says I bake more. I told him if he keeps gaining weight from my cooking, he's not going to be flying anywhere. Just imagining an overweight eagle. He would have to roll, not fly. Bianca laughed and picked up a canvas bag. I'm pretty sure he works off all the dessert when he's chasing the kids. Haley winked. Why do you think I let them have a cookie before he gets home? That's evil. But genius. Bianca snickered as she came around into the kitchen. She helped Haley get the bag packed, then added a few napkins. Oh man, the churros you gave us yesterday didn't last too long. I think Gladys emptied half the Tums bottle for heartburn. God, churros are great. I can't imagine homemade churros. Like, the only churros I've had have been, like, either from a fast food restaurant or sometimes at fairs and stuff. Though they do make them, but I don't know. I feel like these ones would be better because they're made from potentially actually like what's the word? Words. But no, I tell a lie. I did a proper churros once. Proper churros from Spain. I went to Barcelona once and I had them. Churro con chocolate, where you get a really thick hot chocolate to dip them in, and it was glorious. I told her to pace herself, Haley sighed. I can't make those all the time, Bianca smirked. Since when does that Maggers listen to anyone? You know what? That would be one of the... If Haley ever wanted to somehow assassinate Gladys, she could just make churros constantly, and Gladys would just die of a heart attack. Hunters move over. Here comes Haley and her churros. They shared a smile, and for a moment Bianca bonded with the avian mother. Yeah. She set the bag on the table and helped Haley get the rest of the food put away. Her mind wandered as she worked, drifting back to the last night's episode. Shadowy figures kept wafting through her mind, trapping her in a half dream. She wanted to paint a few while she worked with Henry, but teaching him had helped distract her. Besides, they weren't exactly the kind of picture she wanted to paint around him. The woman with the ombre hair flitted in and out of her thoughts, along with the fanged woman. She couldn't see all the details of what she assumed was a vampire, but the flickering image did leave a trace of bat wings fluttering behind her. Gladys popped up time and again, but Bianca couldn't quite know how to connect the two. Didn't quite know how to connect the two. And then the ghostly figure that seemed to wiggle his way into her dreams reared itself, the silhouette of a man holding a black staff with an orb at the tip haunted her. Any time he made an appearance, she knew it would be a bad night. He terrified her, and little could chase away his darkness, an all-consuming, suffocating sensation that left her floundering in bed, or on the floor. "Bianca?" Haley said. Bianca jolted out of her thoughts and looked over. "Huh?" The owl avian stared back, then gestured to the counter. Bianca looked down and almost jumped backwards in fright. A portrait made of flour rested in front of her. Powdered waves coursed along the grain top, coiling around the feet of the bat-winged woman. More waves created a haloed outline of the shadow man and his scepter. Bianca swallowed hard and stared at the flour coating her hands. I'm sorry. I'll get that cleaned up." She started to scoop the powder in her palms, but Haley grabbed her wrist. "This isn't the first time you've drawn images like that. Gladys said she's seen them in your notebook too." Bianca bristled, and the Kara clacked her beak. "Her notebook?" She jerked her wrist free. "She's going through my stuff! Why?" Haley pulled her hands back. "She wanted to see if you were hiding anything, and it sounds like you are. What do your drawings mean?" Bianca flushed and clapped the flour into the sink. "Nothing! Just nightmares. Sometimes they stay with me. Gladys found you curled up on a pile of drawings this morning. One showed a woman with rainbow hair and a red dress," Haley said slowly. "They found a woman who looked like that dead in the streets weeks ago. Human News said it was a mugging, but local district news channel said it was a vampire attack. Thanked a woman." Bianca froze, her hands hovering over the flour. I must have heard about it on the news and just forgotten." Haley gave her a suspicious look. She glanced at the portrait and wheeled her chair back. "You're lying." "I'm not!" Bianca insisted. "I'm not trying to start something or cause problems. It was just a nightmare." But Haley didn't look convinced. She finished wrapping up the cookies and placed them in a jar, the top slamming shut loudly. Bianca's shoulders slumped. Great. And here she thought she'd finally started to build a relationship with the avian mother. She heard the kids come back, but Haley made her stay in the kitchen while she went and saw to Henry and Madison. Bianca's gut twisted with worry, and she tugged at her hair. A bird plucked a feather in kind. It wasn't her fault that she had weird dreams. Nora said I should sketch the images that made me feel better. Nora said I should sketch the images out if it made me feel better. Bianca thought as she grabbed a sponge. She got it wet with soap and water and started to scrub the portrait away. It's not like I thought people were going to go through my stuff. What the hell is that all about, anyway? I'm a guest, not some criminal. Her scrubbing grew more urgent, and her bird kept preening and plucking at feathers until one of Bianca's nails snapped. She sucked in a pained breath. Damn! She dipped her finger in the faucet and bowed her head, sighing. Calm down. Getting worked up isn't going to help. Just talk to Gladys. She had a reason for it. At least she hoped, Gladys did. She just finished cleaning when she heard a knock at the door. She slipped out of the kitchen and answered it while Haley put the paints away with Henry. Gladys's cheery face greeted her, her body swathed in bright yellow and purple. Golden hooped earrings framed her neck, making her look younger. The smile she wore faded as she studied Bianca's face. What's wrong? Why did you tell her about the drawings? Bianca hissed. So much for calm. She's freaking out now. Gladys made an "oh" with her lips. We'll talk in the car. Are you ready? Bianca glanced over her shoulder at Haley and the kids. I guess. Hang on. He retrieved the canvas bag and paused near the door. Haley cleaned green paint off her son's cheek while Madison begged her mother to read them. The perfect picturesque family. The feathered mural on the wall reminded Bianca that she had no place in it. She swung the bag over her shoulder and slipped out past Gladys. Let's go. Gladys lingered at the door for a moment. Have a good day, Haley! She called and started to follow. Bianca heard little feet pounding after them. Bianca, wait! Henry shouted. And I need a drink. Throat. Hydration. She turned and he hopped down the stairs, book in his hands. He held it out to her. Here, I heard Mama say you like to draw in art pads. I haven't used this one. You can have it. Oh, what a sweetie. Bianca looked at the book and touched it. She struggled to hide her sadness. Probably won't get the chance to use it with him anyway. Henry, you should keep this. But I want to share. Henry pulled his hands away and tucked them behind his back, forcing her to hold the book. Can't give it back, he teased, then ran up the stairs to Gladys. He launched forward and wrapped his little arms around her. Grammy Gladys! Hi, little bird, Gladys said fondly. She picked him up and ruffled his hair. You've been good for your mama. Yep. He glanced around, then pitched his voice low. I only stole 2 cookies from the tray. Shh, cheeky. Gladys gave him a stern look. Well, that's not very nice. We don't steal cookies. Her eyes glinted with amusement. Yes, you stole one for me too. Henry reached into his pocket and pulled out a very crumbly, dirty cookie. Gross. I always get one for you, Grammy. Gladys chuckled and opened her mouth, letting him shove it in. Here comes the train, Gladys. She chewed it right then and there, her eyes rolling back, her face taking on a look of bliss as she tasted the nectar of the gods. Delicious. Now, get back to your mama before she finds out about our little secret. You say this, I have found a particular grandma in my life, not my grandma, but a grandma of sorts, who is also a little bit like this, and is like, as long as the kids aren't being completely unreasonable, she'll let them get away with things around her. She's not a snitch. Henry put his finger over his lips and hopped down from her arms. Gladys waved and shut the door behind him. Bianca headed outside with the Magus, clutching the book and the canvas to her chest. She wanted to cry. The kids were a delight to be around, and Haley sometimes exuded kindness when she wasn't worried. But with Bianca's drawings causing her a problem, the prospect of losing another cloister seemed imminent. Granted, they weren't a cloister yet. It was a trial period, but she adored the family, especially the kids. She wanted to protect them, and she didn't want to be alone. As they stepped outside, Gladys placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. You want to talk? Bianca shrugged her attempted comfort off. I wish you hadn't told her. Just started to gain her trust. You draw like that often? Gladys asked. I mean, yeah. I have a lot of vivid dreams. My sister encouraged it. It's nothing. Do any of those images ever come true? Gladys opened the door of her car and slid into the driver's seat. Bianca sat down and fastened her seatbelt. I mean, I guess sometimes. But I figured it was just coincidence. They're just dreams. What's the big deal? It's nothing. I'm just curious. Gladys started up the car and pulled out. In a world of paranormal things like this, I wonder if this is really willful ignorance from Bianca's side. I know she doesn't know a lot about the paranormal world, but I don't know. We don't know how many times she's had dreams that have become true. So I guess we don't know how many times she's purposely gone, that's a coinky-dink. At the moment, we know it's once or twice-ish, maybe, that we know of. Look, Bianca, I'm not trying to upset you. When I found you this morning, it scared me. Why? Bianca asked. Some people have inspiration to write in the middle of the night. I draw. What's the difference? The difference is you had a broken lamp next to you, water on the floor, and you were dead asleep on a pile of really dark pictures. Gladys glanced sideways at her. I'm just worried. I snorted and looked outside. Yeah, about me. Or about what I might do. You! Gladys said with such force. Bianca turned around. The magus did look worried. Bianca would give her that. Maybe she was just reading too much into it? Gladys had done nothing else but treat her like a treasured grandchild after all. Well, I wasn't trying to scare you, Bianca said, brushing fingers across her red lips. It's just kinda normal for me to do that. I'm sorry I broke your stuff. Oh, items can be replaced. People, not so much. Gladys reached out and laid her hand across Bianca's. The physical contact startled her, but Bianca didn't pull away. If anything, she and the bird leaned into it. Promise me, if you ever fit like that again, you'll wake me up. I'm not judging you, just want to be there for you. Really? Really? Gladys said. Bianca bit her lip and blew out a breath. I'll try. That's all I ask. Gladys pulled her hand back and focused on the busy streets of Chicago. Now that's settled, there's a district market I wanted to stop at before we go home. They have, I guess you would call it a farmer's market for non-humans. Isn't it a little late to be selling vegetables? Bianca asked. Not for Earth, Maggie. You can still find some really good stuff. And it's not just produce, they have herbs and other things that maggers like me can use. And I figured we could get some items for you, clothing and all that. Bianca shifted uncomfortably. You know I can't pay you back. Relax, I have a friend who said he could give you some clothing from his pack. It'll help mask your scent, and if the hunters have a parahuman... It'll help mask your scent if the hunters have a parahuman looking for you. Werewolf? You want me to wear werewolf clothing? Gladys arched an eyebrow. You have a problem with werewolves? Well, not exactly. They scared me a little bit, she mumbled sheepishly. Gladys chuckled and turned around the road. All the more reason for us to go. Do you want to live in the district? You need to get used to everyone. And I lied, we're getting to one of my favorite scenes because the market is very fun because we get to see many, many people, many, many things, and I like the many, many things. And I hope I get to see more of the many, many things as I read further into this series, because currently I've still only read this book. Wolf Pit is the second one, and it is on my list. I just have not got around to it yet. My list is long. As is every reader, I guess. What time we are? Okay, we can get another chapter in. Easy peasy. Where's my new update? We are on chapter 9. Done. Get to go to the market, bro. The glass cara cara. Cara cara. Cara cara. Tweet tweet. Chapter 9. The district market encompassed a huge single-story building larger than anything Bianca had seen before. Stalls, both open and with colourful tarps, stood up against walls and in aisles. Parahumans filled the area, selling wares and shopping. To her amazement, artisans had crafted intricate stained glass windows displaying lichens, magi, vampires and fae in their full glory, unafraid of hunters and unashamed of their animal forms and living magic. Bianca's nose twitched, taking in all the unusual smells. A werewolf passed on her right, a vampire on her left, a tall woman standing next to a store with orbs of colourful dust caught Bianca's eye the most. Beautiful iridescent purple wings opened and closed on the woman's back. Violet markings sweeping swirls and dots covered her face and bare arms. A blank tank top had slits for her wings, but also exposed the scars on the woman's back. Despite the marred skin, Bianca found herself drawn to the fae's beauty. When the fae met her eyes, Bianca's cheeks burst with heat. She quickly looked away. I've never met a fae. I can't wait to find out more, since the name of the third book is like Fae Game or something like that. No, what was it? What was it? I don't know. It's not actually out yet, is it? I lie. I have to go. Let me go to Twitter. Let me go Erin's Twitter. Erin. Erin. There you are. I found you. A Game of Fae. That is it. The third book is A Game of Fae. And I do look forward to finding out more about the world's Fae. Because Fae vary so much from like book to book series. You just don't know. You don't know what they're gonna be like. She whispered to Gladys, craning her head to get a better look. Only heard about them. Gladys followed her gaze and nodded. They usually keep to themselves, and even in safe zones, they don't usually like to reveal their true appearances. Shanda there, well, she's not afraid to show she's survived the hunter's knife. Her kind is prized among hunters, and some parahumans, almost as much as drakes and waterfolk. That's another one I want to find out more about. I want to know about the drakes. Show me the dragon people. Are these... I assume because parahumans that they are humanoid. And I need to know. I need to know about the drakes. You need to. It's important. Bianca skidded to stop aghast. Drakes and waterfolk are real too? Gladys smirked. Oh, sweet child. You're going to be making that face a lot while you live in Chicago. I don't get it, though, Bianca said as they walked through the rows of stalls. How do we know the humans... How do the humans not know that this place is here? Gladys tapped her nose. Magic. The answer to all things. A couple of Maggie lent their magic to keep this place hidden. Humans walk towards it, then just kind of turn around and walk away. They get this overwhelming sense that they don't belong here. For us, it's The place of life. They have what I like to call the somebody else's problem field. She touched one of the pillars, holding up the building fondly. I've left a mark on this market with my magic too. We ask multiple Magi to create the shield, just in case one of us falls. Bianca frowned at the implication. Does that happen a lot? It's Chicago, Gladys said with a shrug. Bianca didn't press. Chicago's just a death trap, I see. Children scurried while their parents tried to keep track of them, as well as their purchases. Most of the tables had things Bianca recognized, like produce, books, clothing, even talismans. But then there were other items like herbs, spices, magical objects, grimoires, and the like that she didn't know much about. She assumed they were pertinent to whatever parahuman sold them. She shoved her hands into her pockets, feeling awkward as she walked behind Gladys. Time and again, a parahuman looked up, saw Gladys, and waved cheerfully. Gladys always waved back. Because she is the Queen. The Queen. The Violet Marshal, also known as the Queen. They stopped at a table where a black-skinned ape sold jams and preserves, alongside a bundle of feathers from different raptors? Is that a bird thing? Or are we talking dinosaurs? Probably a bird thing. Gladys picked up one of the red preserves and smiled at the avian. Where did you have to fly to get fruit for this? Not too far, said the woman, and pointed upwards. It's more of a how high did I have to fly? Gladys chuckled and pulled out her wallet. How are the boys doing? A handful. Trent shifted for the first time, and now he keeps refusing to go back to his human form. I just hope he realizes that he needs to stay human while he's in school. Oh, I was afraid of that, Gladys laughed. Wasn't he the one who kept trying to jump off the swing to, lie? And broke his arm in 2 places, yes, the woman sighed. If his brother follows in his steps, I don't know if I'm going to strangle more my... I don't know who I'm going to strangle more, my son or my husband, for being on all of his business trips. Gladys frowned. Things still not getting better with work? She passed the avian $6 and put the preserves in a bag. That's... I was going to say it's pretty cheap, but the exchange rate between dollars and pounds is near enough the same, so that's actually quite a... That's... Must be some good jam. The woman shook her head. Busy, busy. If we weren't avians, I would be worried he was cheating on me. But I don't sense that there's been another bird in his head. Now that's a very useful skill. I know, and I can sense if you've been with another person. Good. He's a good man. I hope his schedule clears up for him soon, and for your boys. Gladys squeezed the avian's shoulder. The woman touched the Mag's hand and smiled. Thanks. Are you stopping by Roseanne's stall at all? She managed to dig up some of those herbs you were asking about. I'm actually going to introduce her and Patia to my friend here. She gestured to Bianca, who jumped a little, startled at being brought into the conversation. Social? This is not what I signed up for. She spent so much time being out in the open made her hands shake and her chest tighten with anxiety. The avian looked Bianca up and down. Another avian, huh? You seem to be flocking here lately. She laughed. No pun intended. You very much did, Gladys teased. And as she should, it was a beautiful pun. But yes, we've had an influx of parahumans in general. There are worse places she could go. Shrugged the bag onto her shoulder. Have a good day. The avian waved. Bianca tilted her head politely to her and then hurried to catch up with Gladys. She touched the woman's arm gently and drew her closer. Are you sure it's safe to introduce me to so many people. But the hunters out there? The parahumans here won't help a hunter. I know them. And if... Maybe... And if they know you're under my protection, they'll protect you as well. Well, that's comforting, Bianca supposed. Still, she didn't like so many eyes on her. She ducked her head behind her black and red hair and moved closer to Gladys. The water magus touched her back, guiding her down the many rows. Bianca started to recognize scents, not just of herbs, but of the holidays. Though only early November, people filled their stalls with holiday wares. Heavily scented pine cones almost made her sneeze, but they also brought back warm memories of her family around a decorated tree and a roaring fire. You could almost taste the candied pecan Dad made by hand for them to enjoy while the winter storm raged outside. Oh, candied pecan sounds lovely too. I think about at least 40% of my brain is entirely dedicated to food. Bianca stopped near a little tree that held glass bird ornament in flight across the branches. She searched for one that looked like her sister, but none popped up. Why would it? Caracaras aren't exactly common birds in the USA. Can I help you? A voice chimed behind her. Bianca jumped and spun. A thin, pale-faced man with blonde hair stood behind her, a smudge of dirt on his cheek. He stood at about her height and wore a simple white shirt and jeans, but a black leather apron covered most of him. A necklace rested over the apron, showing off a red stone. He held a few glass ornaments that had been hanging on another tree near here. Oh, no, I'm just looking. Not finding the bird you want? He asked. He hung up an ebony ornament which looked like a raven. No, Bianca admitted. It's fine, I don't have... What kind of bird? The man interrupted. If you're not seeing the one you want, it's likely someone else is missing it too. Or it's extra popular. Bianca scratched the back of her neck. She looked around for Gladys, but the magus spoke quietly with another vendor. A bird pecked at her, knowing her inner desire to see her likeness in glass. Bianca mentally swatted away good-naturedly at and fought an amused smile at her bird's vanity. A caracara. Oh! The man exclaimed, his face sparkling with delight. Well then, let me put on a show for you. He put the rest of the ornaments down gently and moved around into his booth. Bianca peered over the edge of his display. He pulled a container of sand out from under the stall and placed a large pile of it on a metal table. He wiggled his fingers, and Bianca's arm hairs stood on end as magic washed over her. She took a step back, but he laughed and motioned for her to come closer. Relax, I'm not going to hurt you. I just put up a ward to protect you from harm. Watch. He moved his hand in a clockwise pattern over the sand. At the same time, the red stone encased in a gold wire on his necklace started to glow. The sand particles spun with the motion and lifted into the air. Bianca stared in wonder as it twisted before her eyes. The man pulled out a lighter and flicked it on. He turned his hand. Crimson flames leapt around his fingers. They should have burnt him, but the man merely laughed and bent his fingers, letting the fire jump from one knuckle to the next. Suddenly, he swung his hand and the fire rushed up the swirling sand. Bianca gasped in surprise, but she didn't feel the heat. The ward protected her. He spun his hands over and over again, causing the sand to melt and turn into a viscous material. His fingers danced in the air like he was playing an invisible piano or bringing life to a marionette. He slowed his movements, and the red-hot material lengthened and bobbed to the rhythm like a serpent obeying its tamer. It bent in on itself and reformed with each new flick of his finger. As Bianca watched, a bird began to emerge in the shape of the Karakara. The belly of the avian turned white while its wings remained black. A bright red, almost orange line appeared along the neck. I'm just going to say along. The man kept working until the glass Karakara spun slowly in front of him, held up by his magic. "There we go," he said and lowered the ward. He walked towards the table, the glass rotating above his palm. "It'll take a bit to cool down, but you can pick it up before you leave." Bianca could only stare. "How did..." "Earth magic and fire magic," the magus said and grinned. "What do you think?" "It's beautiful," the Karakara chirped in appreciation. Not that he would hear it. "But I tried to tell you I don't have any money with me." The man tilted his head. She waited for him to get mad at her, but he just shrugged and chuckled. "At least I have another bird to add to my collection." Blushed. "Oh, I'm sorry." "Beautiful!" Gladys exclaimed. As she came up beside Bianca. "Vic, you've really gotten good at that." Vic tipped his head to her. "I aim to please." He continued moving his fingers so the bird wouldn't drop. "This lovely lady told me that this particular bird was missing. I thought I should add it to my collection." Gladys nodded. "How much?" $25. Honestly, that's really good. For like a handmade craft like that? Very nice, very nice. Gladys pulled out her wallet again. Bianca quickly grabbed the woman's hand and shook her head. "It's really okay," she said quietly. I don't have a tree to hang it on." "I'm sure Carlos will have a spot for you, and if he doesn't, I will," Gladys said. "Besides, you said you miss the holidays with your family." She handed the money over and Vic repeated when it would be ready. "Wonderful. We'll stop back on our way out. Thanks, Vic." Vic offered a little bow, then went back to hanging up his ornaments while the Karakara floated near his head. Need drink. And you'd think that maybe magic is cheating for something like that, but you still need a lot of skill to get it in the right sort of position. And then to get the colouring as well, I don't know how you would do that with glass. It's magic. It's magic for the people who don't even have magic, let alone magic for the person who has magic. Gladys tugged on Bianca's sleeves before she could protest. Bianca fell into step behind her and walked down the aisle. "You didn't have to do that," she said. "I don't mind. Besides, I like to support Vic's crafts. He's one of my ward brothers, second to me, actually." She sighed happily. "He's come a long way. He used to only wield earth magic. He spent a long time perfecting his firecraft, and it's gotten a lot better over the years, so allow me to indulge." Bianca tucked her hair behind her ear, thinking, "He's a fire magus too. Why was he wearing a glowing necklace? Aren't Maggies supposed to be able to touch the ether without something to help them?" "Well, yes, but that doesn't mean we don't sometimes use things to fuel our magic. He's wearing a talisman. Maggie can store magic into objects, so when we might need more ether later for a big task, we can draw it out of the talisman instead of using our bodies to channel the ether from the earth. It saves us energy. That's why you'll see some Maggie walking around with big magic-imbued jewellery or watches or sceptres." Bianca froze and stared at Gladys's back. A sceptre? That seemed like an oddly specific thing to say, unless... "My art pad," she said curtly. "You snooped again." For a moment she could envision the dark figure with the scepter looming between her and Gladys. Gladys paused. What do you mean? A scepter? Bianca growled. How many of my drawings did you look at? The Magus sighed. Bianca, you have to understand, I wasn't trying to snoop. When I saw you passed out on the floor, I was worried, so yes, I looked at what you'd drawn. Maybe it could give me some clue about your nightmare. You still didn't have the right. Bianca snapped her mouth shut and glanced around. Few people were staring now. Great. Because making a scene in the middle of a crowded market wasn't going to bring more attention to her. She lowered her eyes and clenched her fists. You didn't have the right, she said softer. They stood apart awkwardly for a few moments before Gladys approached her. Bianca tried not to tense when the Magus gripped her shoulder. I didn't realize how important they were to you, she said. I won't look at them again, I promise. I only want to help and keep you safe, remember? Can you trust me? Bianca wanted to snarl that she couldn't trust anyone. That's why she'd been hurled into this situation to begin with. But she knew it would be a lie. She trusted Henry, and Madison, Carlos, and she trusted Gladys. Yes. Gladys patted her arm. Thank you. Now come on. She pointed towards a store where a man and a woman, both Native American, were laying out handmade quilts, jewellery, and some jars and snacks with herbs. Those two right there are Rosine? I was gonna try to do a copy and paste. Rosen. Patty, I've got no problem with. The other one I do. Oh well, I'll have to do my best. They're the mated alphas of the main Chicago pack. There are a lot of packs in the area, but Patty's is by far the largest, oldest, and the most diverse. His immediate family is all Sock descended, but when new wolves come into the area, no matter their origin, they usually go to him for refuge, or I point them his way. Patty is a bit of a hard ass, but it's just because he wants to keep the pack safe. Packs safe. Laurel. Bianca's heart sped up. She never really interacted with werewolves. Her family stayed clear of them due to bad blood in the past. Not that they ever told her what that entailed. Patty and Rosne. I don't know. It's probably really obvious, but I don't know why my brain's just like, I don't know that word. Didn't look overly threatening at first glance. Patty walked around in jeans and a red plaid shirt, his black hair tied back in 2 braids, held in place by leather straps with a starburst design stitched into them. Rosen laid out a woven blanket, her dark hair pinned up behind her, showing off a few scars on her neck. She wore jeans and a flowing green shirt with a similar starburst trim on the sleeves and collar. She flicked back a stray strand of hair, revealing a colourful beaded earring, and said something to Patia. When he glanced at Bianca, she wanted to stop in her tracks. His eyes were an odd copper colour, almost bordering on blood red. A vampire with those eyes would have sent her running in the other direction. Never heard of a werewolf with red irises. Gladys didn't seem to notice her discomfort. She approached the 2 wolves and hailed Rosen first. I heard you found the herbs I was looking for. Rosen looked up, smiling. Gladys, I wondered when you'd come by. Hang on. She reached into a cooler at her knee and pulled out a sack. Here. Found it while I was on a run. Managed to preserve it before the frost. Gladys opened the bag and sniffed. Her eyes rolled back in delight. You got it in time. Frozen snorted, planting her hands on the hips. Don't think I can store my own herbs? Oh, put your teeth away, Gladys laughed. I know you can. Thank you for this, my friend. Frozen nodded and held out her hand. Gladys slipped payment into her palm. As Frozen stuck it into her pocket, Patia came up to his wife's side and touched her hip. His eyes drifted towards Bianca. Is this the bird you were telling us about? Gladys turned towards her, only then realizing Bianca cowered several feet away. She huffed, motioning with 2 fingers. Don't be rude, come over here. Bianca wanted to do just the opposite, but Gladys didn't often condone rudeness. Her feet struggled to stay rooted in place, but she forced herself to join the Magus. She still made sure to keep distance between herself and the 2 wolves. Her Kara puffed and made disgruntled noises. Oh. What small bird, what do you think you can do against big wolves? Make yourself look big. I know, Bianca thought. I don't like it either. Sorry, Gladys apologized to the wolves. Bianca here didn't spend too much time around wolves where she came from. Ah, Frozen said. She flashed a smile that both calmed and unnerved Bianca. We don't typically bite, unless you anger one of us. You don't tend to anger us, do you? No. Then there's nothing to worry about. She turned back to the crates she'd brought with her. Give me a second. I brought a few things for you. I think you're about Caitlin's size. While she fished around for the clothing, Patia came closer. His eyes burrowed into her very soul, breaking through mental walls and peering into the eyes of her bird. The Kara made trilling noises of warning. Bianca drew another step back. Unlike Roseanne, he didn't wear the friendliest smile. He gazed upon her with cool, calculating eyes which looked her up and down. Not in a lascivious way, just to take her in. You sure this is a wise idea, Gladys? Do you know why they're after her in the first place? Not sure, Gladys confessed. She thinks it has to do with her sister's past profession. The hunters haven't been around my home since I took Bianca in. No one has even tapped at my shield. My guess is if they'd wanted to kill her, they would have done it by now. Or else they'd be recouping to come back at us a different way. She shook her head. She's staying with Carlos when I'm out and about. Patia made a noise in his throat. How's Haley taking to that? Better than I expected, Gladys admitted. They were doing mostly well today. Mostly? Well... Gladys glanced at Bianca. Bianca moved away nervously when Patia zeroed in on her again. We're still getting used to each other, she said. Patia shook his head. It's unfortunate that you've come to us under these circumstances. Several of my wolves have been chased to Chicago. I fear that the hunters are growing. I fear that the hunter threat is growing. I understand the purpose for some of them, but marks are being placed on parahumans' heads. He chuckled dryly under his breath. I suppose once we stop hating each other because of color and origin, we start finding other ways to despise one another. Ain't it like that, though? He unrolled another blanket and smoothed it out on the table. 2 wolves howled across its surface, while an eagle soared high above their heads. If I hear anything, I'll let you know. Much appreciated, Patia. Roseanne reappeared with the clothing in her arms. These should do well. I'm sorry it still smells like wolf. I hope it doesn't unsettle you too much. She held out the bundle. Bianca swallowed and slowly took it. It's fine. Thank you. Oh, I just need to shift in my seat a little bit. Yeah. Gladys gave her thanks. She headed away from the table with Bianca trailing behind her. Bianca couldn't help but glance back at the wolves. Rosen returned to her supplies, but Patia kept watching Bianca, even as she walked away. It took Rosen's sharp tug on his sleeve to divert his attention. They made their way through the market, with Bianca clutching the clothing and lingering a step or two behind Gladys. Gladys picked up purchases, mostly herbs and items from maguses or witches' tables. Bianca wanted to enjoy this. She wished she could be more open to the people interacting with her and Gladys. Each time she thought to, the ghostly pang of henbane gnawed at her leg. She missed painting with Henry, baking with Madison. For a moment, she'd been part of a family again. For a moment, there weren't people after her, and Haley didn't look at her like she was some kind of pariah. She missed being normal. Eventually, the Magus brought them back to Vic's station. The display tree had fewer birds on than Bianca remembered. Someone was doing well with his sales. Vic smiled in greeting to them, the glass caracara bird resting in his palm. There you are! The caracara was a good choice, kid. A lot of people like how it looks. He held it out to her. Here you go. Bianca reached for it. Thank you, it's really... Her skin brushed his, and suddenly the world slowed to a crawl. Shadowy images flashed in front of Bianca's eyes and danced around her. She turned in place, watching them. The urge to paint, draw, do something hit her like a hammer to the stomach. Her hands fumbled with the caracara and it fell. Bianca looked down at the pile of sand that Vic had at his workstation. She ran her hands through it, drawing the images again. The dark man with the stick, no, the scepter, the woman with the bat wings, and now a wave crashing into another figure. Colour! She needed colour. Her caracara came to the rescue and forced a talon through her flesh. She cut the tip of her other finger, causing blood to drip in the drawing. She smeared it across the workstation until the wave turned crimson. A wave of blood. A warning. Glass shattered. The world moved again. Bianca stood over the work table, panting, her chest aching as if she'd flown for miles. Vic fell backwards to the floor, clutching his hand and looking horrified. The glass caracara lay in pieces on the ground. Bianca blinked stupidly and looked around. The area nearest to her had fallen deathly silent, and people stopped to stare at her like she'd grown horns. She turned slowly in a circle, her panic rising, her head still spinning. Her shoe crushed the fragile glass ornament even more as she looked down in regret. What are you? He hissed. She looked up to find him on the floor, as far away from her as possible. Bianca opened her mouth, but to only manage a weary sigh as her mind spun and she crashed to the ground, unconscious. And that is why we're leaving it for today. Definitely not the normal urge to draw. I've had the whole I need to get up and do a thing because I've had a good idea. But mostly that just is lazily rolling, grabbing phone, typing things, put phone back, go back to sleep. That is all the creative urge I have had in the night. And even then, that is rare. I'm the kind of person whose creative brain tends to work in the morning, not during the night. So you're gonna have to wait until next week to find out what happens there. I do apologize. I've just realized that let me do a thing. I just realized that the schedule on my bye-bye screen is not up to date, even though my schedule for next week is going to be pretty much exactly the same as last week. However, depends what happens with Sonic on Monday. Because we've gotten to the third Titan, which theoretically, according to the game, is like the last one. If the game is to be believed. I don't believe it. But we'll see. So, who knows? I could be completing Sonic next week. Which is a shame, because apparently... Oh, wait. Sorry. I was typing stuff and it triggered things. Oh, dropped my glasses. Let me put them back on. Ha 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 ha. It's the 5th to the 11th next week. Okie dokie. Yeah, so it'll be 3 streams again. Sonic, Purple Door District. And it will probably be my last Purple Door District, as this is obviously... We're 42% of the way through, so we're probably going to get just over 50% because I want to be able to do a good chunk for the stream. We're streaming on the 5th, the 6th, and the 11th. Ta-da! Quickly get that all saved, and then I will change my bye-bye screen on the fly. Look at this. Look at this scuff! I really like the book. I'm actually kind of annoyed that I haven't managed to get to the other books, but I guess they are something to look forward to next year. They'll definitely want to at least read one of them next year. I don't know when A Game of Fae is going to be, but hopefully that's not too far away. 2022. Save. This, so that my bye-bye screen while being on this screen. Look at this. Look at this. Absolute. Yeah. Okay, so my my bye-bye screen is... Oh, I didn't mean to actually put you on yet. I haven't done my thing yet. I haven't done my goodbye yet. You've just had me chatting poop. Anyway, this has been Brownie Rose Smith, live from the Forbidden Library. I will see you tomorrow where we play more Sonic Frontiers. And if you want more Purple Door District, you'll have to wait until next Sunday. Or you can go buy the book yourself. Links in the description. Hashtag not an ad, but hashtag a good book and you should read it. Other than that, I had fun with this stream. I hope you had fun with this stream. Goodbye.